Planning Commission meeting. And before we start tonight, we have a new commissioner, Justin Cassida from Woodburn. And Mr. Moore, if you would give him the oath of office, please, sir.
Well, thank you. Cassida, are you prepared to take the oath of office?
Yeah.
If so, would you please raise your right hand? And I will read the oath to you and ask you at the end if you agree to these things, and you may answer either I will or I will not.
Okay.
Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this Commonwealth, and be faithful and true to the Commonwealth of Kentucky, so long as you continue a citizen thereof, and that you will faithfully execute to the best of your ability the office of Planning Commissioner according to law? And do you further solemnly swear that since the adoption of the present Constitution, you, being a citizen of this state, have not fought a duel with deadly weapon within this state nor out of it, nor have you sent or accepted a challenge to fight a duel with deadly weapons, nor have you acted as a second in carrying a challenge, nor aided or assisted any person thus offended. So help you God. If so, answer.
Thank you, Justin, for serving, and thank you for being a good citizen of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Okay, McKenna, if you would call the roll, please.
Commissioner Cassida.
Here.
Commissioner Sissel. Here. Commissioner Ritchie. Here. Commissioner Gay. Commissioner Graham.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Shaw.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Starks.
Here.
Commissioner Vitale. Yes, and Chair Warren.
Yes, ma'am. Commissioners, you have the minutes of our March the 2nd meeting in your packet. Are there any questions? Hearing none, would call for a motion, please.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Starks. Yes. Commissioner Vitale. Commissioner Cassida.
Abstain.
Commissioner Sissel. Abstain. Commissioner Ritchie. Abstain. Commissioner Gay.
Ma'am.
Commissioner Graham.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Shaw.
Yes, ma'am.
And Chair Warren.
Yes, ma'am. The motion is approved. Commissioners, in your packets that were mailed to you, you have the subdivision and site development plans. Are there any questions? Then they will be approved as sent to you. Our new business tonight, Megan, if you would give us our 2024 budget.
Fiscal year 24.
Yeah, fiscal year 24. Thank you.
All right. So everybody should have a copy of the budget in their packet and a budget memo. I'll go over just a quick summary of it, and then at the end, if anybody's got any questions, just let me know. So first of all, you'll notice that the green column is our current year projections. So this is important because this helps us project what our carryover is going to be for next year. And as you guys know, we're on a cash basis, so our carryover is our beginning balance for next year. So it's very important to know how much we're going to start with. The yellow column is our fiscal 24 budget. It's the proposed budget. This is only proposed at this point. We will submit it to the city and the county for approval. And then I will come back to you guys in July with the final budget once we actually have closed out this year's budget. We'll get that final carryover balance number and do the final budget. So just a quick review of the highlights. We'll start with income on the first page in the yellow column. On line 2 and 3, you'll notice that we have requested an increase from the city and the county in the amount of $50,000 each for a total of $100,000. The reason for this increase is, as you guys know, we have had a lot of growth and we really need to hire another employee. So that will pay for that employee, and then also it will pay for the cost of living increases. And as you guys know, those are published from the Department of Local Government. So they set those every year, and we try to follow those as closely as we can. And then, so a new employee, cost of living increases, and just inflation. Then also MPO and transit on line 5 and 6, those are decreasing because we don't have a transportation study or transit campaign planned for this next year. That's pretty much got all of the big things in income covered. Before I move on to expenses, or any questions for this year or for income? Okay. Moving on to expenses. So our biggest change is going to be line 25, which is salaries. That's going to have our COLA, which is a 6.5% COLA this year, and it is also going to have the new employee. And then down below that, you'll notice our FICA Medicare increases just a little bit, health, dental, incremental increases in those as well. If we move over to the second page, in office, we have a few increases there, but nothing too substantial. Advertising, postage, those type of things are going up just a little bit. Recording fees are going up. That's a pass-through for us, though. And computer software is going down just a little bit. If we move on down to the next category, MPO expenses, everything there is decreasing, and again, that's because we don't have a transit or transportation study or campaign planned for next year. That's really our big changes we have in the budget. I forgot to mention, but anything that is a change from last year to this year is highlighted green. Everything else is staying the same or close. And I've reviewed this budget with the Budget Committee, HAMP, and Ben, and I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Megan, just share with the other commissioners that are on the Budget Committee that you are, our projected numbers are conservative because we had a good year last year, and you've...
Yes. Our projections for next year, especially in the construction review fee column, they are conservative. I did get with Jacob prior to or when I was working on the budget, and we had about $114,000 projected for next year, but that's the projects that we know about, and as you guys know, construction fees are very, we just really don't know what they're going to be from one year to the next. So we do know that we've got about 114 planned. Of course, some of those could fall through, but then we'll probably get more that's submitted next year as well. So that's just an estimate.
Just explain one more thing, that if, once a project's approved, the person could have 2 to 3 years to implement that. Am I saying that correctly? From the construction fees side.
Yes. From the construction fee point, once they pay those construction fees and they give us the contract and they start work, they will have, I think this is the answer to your question, they have 3 years to complete that project. So we're on the hook for the next 3 years to do inspections and keep track of that project.
Megan, very quickly,
Sure.
The MPO money, is that a pass-through, or, and
It
if
is.
not, so, okay, so
For the most part,
Okay.
especially the studies, yeah.
Got it. So there isn't really $150,000 in savings there, because there's last year's budget was 214, this year is 45.9. Did that money go somewhere, or did it we just didn't get it?
So from this year to next year, the difference, let's see, are you talking about line number 5, MPO-related funds?
No, line 51.
Oh, on expenses, okay.
So,
Yes,
right, so it's not exactly 150, but it's probably 165 or so. So did that money just not come in, or was it distributed elsewhere?
so if you look up on line number 48, which is transportation studies, and then line 49, which is transit planning funds, there's $200,000 there that we had budgeted and that we are using this year for studies.
Aha, okay. I
Okay,
see.
so we will get reimbursed through MPO 100% for those studies. Some of it's coming from the city and then the state. So we actually will, for these particular ones, get reimbursed 100%. Next year, we don't have studies planned, so we will not receive that money, nor will we have those expenses.
We don't have the expense and we don't have the income, and that's why it's, the number is going down. Got it.
Exactly.
Very good. All right.
Yes.
Thank you, Megan.
Yes, you're welcome.
Thank you, Mr.
Any other
Graham.
questions I can answer?
Commissioners, any other questions? Thank you, Megan. Thank you for all you do and
Yes, thank you.
keeping us in the green.
Yep. If there's no other questions, we do need a motion to pass the budget.
Commissioners, is there a motion and a second?
Moved.
McKenna, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Gay? Commissioner Graham?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Shaw?
Ma'am.
Commissioner Starks?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vitale?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Cassida?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Sissel? Commissioner Ritchie?
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Warren?
Yes, ma'am. The motion is approved. Item number 2, under new business, we have the letters of credit and performance bonds, and you have a corrected number. There's 2 of them at your table tonight. And are there any questions regarding those letters of credit and performance bonds? Hearing none, would call for a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Graham?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Shaw?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Starks?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vitale?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Cassida?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Sissel? Commissioner Ritchie?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Gay?
Ma'am.
Chair Warren?
The credit and performance bonds are approved. Before we enter into our public hearing, Councilor Moore, would you call our witnesses into?
Mr. Warren, I request that you order that the record tonight include the statutory and regulatory provisions that govern tonight's hearings, the commission's entire file for each application on tonight's docket, and the qualifications of each staff witness. If you would please then administer the oath to each of those witnesses.
Swear to tell the truth? Yes, sir. Thank you very much. We have no old business tonight, is that right, Mr. Peterson? We now enter into our first public hearing for tonight. 2023-01 RWC Exile Properties LLC, care of Christopher Siegrist and William C. Bishop, have filed an application to close approximately 1,498 square feet of an unimproved alley fronting Regents Avenue between 516 Regents Avenue and 518 Regents Avenue. Jenny?
We'll be pretty quick with this one. To reiterate the request, the applicants have filed an application to close the approximately 1,498 square feet of an unimproved alley fronting Regents Avenue between 516 Regents and 518 Regents. The staff recommendation for this application is approval with the suggested condition over on page 2. So moving over to page 2 to look at that suggested condition, staff recommend that a plat consolidating the closed right-of-way with the adjacent properties must be recorded at the Warren County Courthouse within 120 days of final approval of the right-of-way closure by Bowling Green City Commission. Page 1 and page 2 both have the zoning ordinance requirements for y'all's reference, but that's all that staff have, but I'm happy to answer any of y'all's questions.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions?
So how do we go about executing this recommendation of filing? Probably a question for staff.
You have the motion page on
a motion page on page 3 of your staff report. So if you choose to approve or deny, your suggested motions are listed there.
I may have misunderstood. I thought there was a recommendation that they record the right-of-way within 120 days. Okay, so you've got it included in the suggested motion?
That's just a condition of approval,
Oh, as
or a
con-
suggested condition.
So it's
So
not-
in the motion page, you'll see, if you choose to approve it, it says with the condition as listed in the staff report.
Got
So
it.
that'll
Okay,
have you covered.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Commissioners, any other questions? Thank you, Jenny. Is there anyone in the audience tonight that has a question regarding this motion or opposition to it? Okay, hearing none, commissioners would call for a motion, please.
Make a motion to approve the proposed right-of-way closing docket number 2023-1 RWC with the condition that listed in the staff report. My motion based on the findings of fact as presented by the staff report and the testimony presented in this public hearing that the right-of-way closing is in compliance with section 3.16 of the Warren County zoning ordinance.
Commissioner Gay,
Ma'am.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Shaw,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Starks,
Yes.
Commissioner Vitale,
Yes, ma'am.
and Chair Warren.
Yes, ma'am. The motion is approved and goes to the Bowling Green City Commission for final approval. Our next item tonight is 2023-0 Flume, MAK Development and Holdings, LLC, care of Andy Schultz, has filed an application for a future land use map amendment on a portion of tracts of land containing approximately 8 acres located at 0 and 3509 Nashville Road from industrial to mixed-use commercial. Rachel?
Thank you, Chair Warren.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't think I see anybody here who's interested in the withdrawn application.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Moore. Our second item tonight was the Chandler Holdings LLC versus David Chandler, the applicant owner, and Terry M. and Brenda Hale, trust property owners. They filed an application for a future land use map amendment on a portion of tracts of land containing approximately 54 acres located at 0 and 998 Nashville Road from low-density residential to commercial and high-density residential. That motion, this proposal tonight has been withdrawn, so if you are here tonight, thank you, Mr. Moore, this will not be heard tonight. So if you choose to leave, is that correct, Ham? It's withdrawn. Thank you very much. Okay, Rachel.
All right. Before I get started, I will just mention briefly, when we had our training back in February, we had discussion about the future land use map, and the staff was given the direction to include recommendations on our staff reports. And so this evening is the first time that you're seeing those recommendations. Also, starting this evening, future land use map amendments, when they're considered by this body, are separate from a zone change. And so you'll see with the staff report here, it is in a slightly different format, and that's because it's specific to the future land use map. And so it's not necessarily what you would normally see with a zone change application. So I did just want to note a couple of different sections in the report. I'm not going to read through them, but you'll see that there is a new heading, the purpose of the future land use map and the relationship to zoning. So that may be new if you notice that. And then also the criteria to amend the future land use map, that's a little bit more in depth than what you would have seen before. So I just wanted to point out that if those sections look different, that's because they are. But I'm happy to go through anything in detail as needed. And with that, I will jump into the staff report. So looking at the property here, the future land use map amendment is proposed for a portion of the property at 0 and 3509 Nashville Road. Currently zoned light industrial, agriculture, and highway business with a use of single family. The current future land use map designation for the area in question is industrial, with a proposed amendment to mixed use commercial, which is what the front half of the property is designated as currently. In our review, we found that the proposed future land use map amendment was generally in agreement with LU 1.1.4 which is the criteria to amend the future land use map. And we also found the application to be compatible with the surrounding area. We had one consideration noted regarding open space, and that is referenced on page 5, down at the bottom above the staff review summary. And we've just noted that the applicants are proposing, let me jump to the proposed site plan. I should mention that if this future land use map amendment is approved and moves forward, it's roughly 8 acres, and the area shaded in green is proposed to be developed for multifamily use. Under the current future land use designation of industrial, the RM4 zoning is not potentially compatible in that future land use category, which is why the applicant has filed the amendment to amend the rear portion to the mixed-use commercial designation. And so if this application were to be approved, we reviewed the preliminary development plan and noted that the proposed open space, as far as what is submitted for this evening, it does include several amenities, such as a clubhouse, pool, grilling, and/or outdoor pavilion and green space. The zoning ordinance requires a minimum of 15% green space for property zoned RM4, and their preliminary development plan depicts a greater amount of open space than the 15% minimum required in the zoning ordinance. And so staff suggested that the applicants consult with their engineer based on the number of units proposed and the green space that's shown on the preliminary development plan to determine a reasonable amount of green space that could be provided for the development, but this was left unaddressed by the applicants. And so we just did want to note that for your consideration, but again, found this application to be generally in agreement with the comprehensive plan and compatible with the area, and so we have recommended approval pending the public hearing testimony that you'll hear this evening.
Thank you, Rachel. Commissioners, any questions for Ms. Hurt? Mr. Graham?
So a couple of questions, Rachel. As I look at the aerial, it appears that the current use is a mobile home park. Am I correct about that?
It's been cleared off, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
the applicant may want to speak to that, but historically it has been operating as a mobile home park.
So if it has been operating as a mobile home park, how is the flume currently industrial mixed use?
So the future land use map isn't always a representation of the current land use.
I see.
And it's just a general idea of how land use may develop over time if property is redeveloped. And so if we go back to the current land use map, you'll see that on the north and southern side of the mobile home park, you'll find industrial uses. And so that is why the future land use map was designated for future use if the property were to be developed or redeveloped in the future of the mixed-use commercial and industrial designations.
See, okay. And last question is, so you spoke of the open space that's proposed. Wouldn't we address that at the zoning hearing rather than?
You would. And so I guess that's one thing on page 4, you'll see that it's just a compatibility assessment of the preliminary development plan. It is preliminary. It's subject to change. I believe the applicants may be able to speak to that, but they kind of wanted to give you an idea of what was to come down the road if they did receive approval for this particular application.
And very helpful. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure if this is a question for you or not, but on the future land use map, we've got the mixed use portion. And so what's being proposed tonight would actually fit in that, right? And then on the
So part of the property is already designated as mixed-use commercial. But the area that's shaded in green on the future land use map right now is designated for industrial use. And so that's why they've asked to amend that portion of the property, because their proposed multifamily use and RM4 zoning are not potentially compatible in that particular category.
well, on the Flume Amendment exhibit, there's a proposed lot for highway business. All that is proposed highway business. Is that going to change?
So the zoning at the front is already highway business. Let me go back to the zoning map. So everything at the front half already is highway business currently.
What they plan?
Yeah, they're planning to keep that. If we go back to the preliminary development plan, What's for your consideration this evening is part of a larger development. The zoning is already appropriate for what they have planned at the front, which includes storage units and some commercial out parcels up front. Yes, ma'am?
Commissioners, any other questions? Thank you, Rachel, for a
Thank you.
good report. Is the applicant or their representative here tonight would like to make comments, please?
Evening, Commission. Julie Shadowan on behalf of the applicants,
Your address, please, Julie.
908 State Street.
Thank you very much.
So thank you, Rachel, for your detailed summary. Members of the Commission, thank you for your time tonight. I certainly don't want to repeat the staff report because it's thorough in its summary of our application and the relevant criteria for your consideration. But I would like to briefly address the highlights of the plan development and why we believe the Flume Amendment is appropriate. Again, we are requesting industrial to mixed use. The proposed Flume designation may include retail service, hotels, and higher density residential units where appropriate. Within this proposed Flume designation, developers are encouraged to focus on quality construction and aesthetics, open space, and connectivity. Under LU 1.1.4 criteria 3, we believe the proposed use is appropriately focused and with existing surrounding development when considered as part of the larger planned parcel development to include multifamily and highway business uses. The reasons for this are, and as Commissioner Graham pointed out, the historical use of this property has been a mobile home park. While that is technically single family, when considered as to the number of units that are for rent on a single parcel, it is very much akin to a multifamily residential use. Further, the surrounding development, there's multifamily use across Nashville Road, both in Covington Station and the old Nashville Road Loop Apartments. The industrial and heavy equipment retail use is, our parcel is located between that Bobcat retail space and NASCO. The compatibility assessment shows that building height is consistent when you look at the industry surrounding, but also we are planning highway business at the front, which arguably could include a hotel of several stories in height. So we believe the multifamily that we're proposing in the back would be sufficiently screened or buffered from Nashville Road. Building materials will be a quality mix of stone, brick, and hardy board, and utilities will be underground. Buildings adjacent to public streets will be oriented facing those streets or designed so that they appear to be front-facing. The density is consistent with the area and existing infrastructure. The area range is 2.56 to 22.86 dwellings per acre. The proposal is for 20.8. We believe the proposed amendment is viable, given the comprehensive plan goal that encourages infill at a higher density where adequate infrastructure exists. The green space is planned as well as amenities such as a pool and grilling pavilions, as Rachel mentioned, and we have committed to a 15% minimum green space. Proposed public road will connect the multifamily and highway business parcels to Nashville Road, and an internal sidewalk system will connect to the public sidewalk on that proposed public road, which will eventually connect to the Nashville Road sidewalk system. We have tendered proposed DPCs to address these issues, as well as landscaping and screening. These, of course, will be submitted with the zone amendment application should this Flume amendment be approved. Further, applicants have tendered a preliminary development plan, which Rachel showed you. This outlines the overall development of the parcel and shows the balance that this land use would bring with this proposed development should the Flume amendment be approved. We respectfully ask for your approval, and I have Mr. Schultz here and Mr. Esters if you have any questions for us. Thank you.
Julie, Commissioners, any questions? On page 4, the multifamily zone shall be developed with a maximum of 192 units, parking, blah, blah, blah. What is their commitment to the, maybe I missed it, the building materials for the exterior?
Brick, stone, and hardy board.
In 100%?
Yes.
Okay. So
course, this is this is a bit of a change for us, but I assume we're going to have these same conversations at the zoning application regarding those building materials and setbacks and density and et cetera, correct? All right, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
We were talking about maybe hotels could be up front to buffer to the residential, and Rachel mentioned parking, oh, not parking, storage. Is storage for sure, and the other stuff just up in the air?
As the current development plan shows, yes, the center section would be storage units. The front 3 commercial will be out parcels, retail, coffee shop, something of that nature. That's the plan. There's no hotel in the plan, but it could be under the current zone.
Thank you, Julie. Commissioners, any other questions for Ms. Shadowin?
I have one. Ms. Shadowin? Yes. On the multifamily residential, will it be similar to what's developed across the street in the Grove area?
Those are townhouses. These will be more like apartments, or they are
Apartments.
apartments, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Commissioners, any other questions for the applicant or their representative? Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience tonight that has a question or an opposition to this request? Okay. Hearing none, commissioners would call for a motion, please, tonight to amend the flume for this proposal tonight.
Make a motion to approve the future land use map, to approve the proposed future land use map amendment, docket number 2023-04 Flume. Based upon the testimony and documents presented in this public hearing, the proposed Flume amendment has met the criteria to amend the Flume as outlined in LU 1.1.4 of the comprehensive plan. Further, I request that this motion include a summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at this public hearing.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Shaw,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Starks,
Yes.
Commissioner Vitale,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Cassida,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Sissel,
Yes.
Commissioner Ritchie,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Gay,
Yes, ma'am.
and Chair Warren.
Yes, ma'am. The motion is approved for the Flume amendment, planning and zoning final action tonight. Our next item tonight is 2023-17 Z County, Morgantown Bank and Trust Company Incorporated applicant, and Neel Dillard, K. Dillard, and June Hayden, the property owners, have filed an application to rezone approximately 2.89 acres located at the northwest corner of Nashville Road and Richpond Road from ag to highway business to general business and agriculture with a general development plan. Ms. Hurt?
Thank you, Chair Warren. We had a pre-application meeting back in February for the properties you just referenced, located on Nashville Road and also at the corner of Richpond-Rockfield Road. The current zoning is split between ag and HB, highway business. The current land use is single family, and the future land use designation is mixed use residential. So, looking at the summary of request, it may seem a little confusing because there are multiple zones currently, and basically the easiest way to explain it is there's a partial land swap going on with the property to the north, and so that part is more of a cleanup. The main portion that you'll want to consider this evening is really the request to rezone the majority of the property to general business, GB general business, which would be these 2 main parcels and a portion of this up here. So that's really the main focus this evening. Looking at the preliminary development plan here, you'll see that one of the applicants, Morgantown Bank and Trust, they're proposing to develop the front portion of the property that fronts Nashville Road for a new bank at that location, and then there's also an additional commercial out parcel proposed to the rear portion that would front along Richpond-Rockfield Road. Looking at the staff recommendation, Our recommendation is for approval, pending the public hearing testimony, and we do have a couple of discussion items for your consideration. We did note that the proposal complies with the majority of the criteria that we reviewed in the review process, and we did find the proposal to be generally compatible with the area. We did have a couple of items noted on page 3. The first of that, we're going to look at building orientation. And the applicants agreed in their development plan conditions that any structure constructed on Lot 1, which would be the front lot, adjacent to Nashville Road shall be oriented to face Nashville Road, and that any building constructed on Lot 2, which would be the property to the rear, fronting Richpond-Rockfield Road, would be oriented to face Richpond-Rockfield Road. The development plan conditions for the property to the southwest, so it'd be across Richpond-Rockfield Road here, if you're looking on the site plan. Those development plan conditions require that property with side facades along Richpond-Rockfield Road be screened, and staff suggested that the applicants consider including a similar requirement. However, the applicants indicated that they did not believe screening of the facade facing Richpond-Rockfield Road for Lot 1 was necessary. And then looking at signage, the applicants did address signage in Development Plan Condition 6 and agreed that the property would be limited to one freestanding sign on each lot. Each sign will be no taller than 10 feet in height with a sign face area no larger than 100 square feet, and that each sign should be landscaped. The development plan conditions for the nearest GB developments, and I'll go back to the map here so I can reference those. It would be this corner parcel or corner parcels here, zone general business, and then also kind of on the northeast side, that general business zoning. Those have been recently brought before you and approved, and their development plan conditions further limit freestanding signage to monument-style signage and also prohibit LED signs. And staff suggested that the applicants consider similar restrictions. However, they only addressed the proposed height and square footage for the freestanding signage. That is all for the staff report, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
So, Rachel, just a quick question. The property facing Richpond-Rockfield Road, they did not agree to?
They agreed that the building on the back lot would face Richpond-Rockfield Road, and they also agreed that the building at the front would face Nashville Road, but there's no requirement that the facade on the side be designed with the appearance of a front facade for that lot. And so oftentimes, if that's not the case, then applicants will offer a screening requirement, which is what the application just directly to the south
Gotcha.
has proposed and received approval for in their development plan conditions.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions for Ms. Hurd? Thank you very much. Is the applicant here? Yes, sir. Mr. Penn.
Good evening. Gaines Penn,
Address.
1101 College Street, Bowling Green.
Ain't you swear to tell the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As Ms. Hurt, I'll echo Ms. Shadowan's comments. Another thorough report. I won't try to belabor the point. Conceptually, I think it's important just to touch on that. We are basically creating two new lots out of two separate pieces of property owned by family members, but separate owners. And it's a little confusing because part of it's highway business already and some of it's agriculture. And so there's some swapping going back and forth, but the intent is to create two lots. The front one, about 1.5 acres, general business, and the second one about 1.2 acres general business. Okay. In terms of the public part of my presentation, I would like to just focus on our development plan conditions just to show how we're trying to make efforts to make this zone change compatible with the existing uses. The first one is the traffic issue. We've complied with the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, right in, right out only off of Nashville Road. The entrance and exit point off of I get that backwards, Richpond Road is basically a shared entrance, and so that, we think that's what the Highway Department wanted, and that's what we agreed to. We also restrict building to no more than 2 stories, which is lower than the maximum. We've agreed to banking hours, actually more than banking hours, but this shouldn't be a problem because that's what's going to go there, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. In terms of commercial operations. Our development plan, condition number 4, sets out a whole host of things that you don't want in your backyard, and that's what we've listed there. I won't read those, but I'll be happy to answer any questions about that. There are 6 mobile homes on the back part of this lot, and those are non-conforming uses, and those will be removed prior to any development, okay? In terms of the signage issue, I believe the requirement is no higher than 20 feet and faces no bigger than 200. We've cut that down to 10 feet and no bigger faces than 100 square feet. We'd love to try to comply with the commission staff's request, but here it's a bank, and that the banking signs are about that size, and there will be lighting on the signs. So we think we'll make nice signs with landscaping around it. That's our proposal. In terms of the facing of the buildings, yes, the bank's going to face the Nashville Road. We don't really want to screen that facade on the side simply because that's the way the bank is. It's an open area type of concept. We want people to see our bank from Richpond Road and be able to come in and out. We don't think that's going to be a negative at all in this situation. In terms of construction materials, we're going to use high quality stone masonry type products for at least 70%, I believe. And all of the loading docks and things, including any air conditioning units that are going to be up on top of the roof, will be screened. Any mature trees, we're going to try to preserve those, except to the extent that they're going to be right in the middle of a building, subject to engineering approval. Underground utilities will be mandatory, as well as any sinkhole remediation on the property. So we think this is a great project. We're happy to answer any questions. The applicant is here, Mr. Jones, as well as the Dillards, the property owners.
James, on the property facing Richpond-Rockfield Road, what the sign, would that be a monument sign or for the building behind it, would that be a monument sign?
No, sir. We have not restricted that. That could be a freestanding sign.
I guess just to clarify,
Yeah.
monument signage is a type of freestanding signage. So I guess by not restricting the sign type to freestanding or to monument style, you're planning a pole sign.
I think we want to keep that option open if that's
On
okay.
the second property?
On the second property.
Okay.
I don't think the plans are as far along as what's going to go there is what.
But whatever you understand, whatever we approve tonight, however the plans end up, is whatever we approve.
So let's circle back I'm sorry, Gaines, go ahead.
Sorry, can I take a second and just ask them about that?
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
Is there something between a monument and a pole sign? I guess a pole sign could be anything from 2 full monuments to a really nice one.
A monument is lower.
Yeah.
And they don't need a pole sign on Richfield, or Rockfield, Richmond.
I guess maybe they would be trying to attract attention from Nashville Road.
No, but you can't see it once they build that building.
You
You
need to
turn
be
on.
able to see it. I got it. I see it.
Yeah, I think they need to back that one off and make that a monument.
Mr. Dillard, who is with us tonight, said he's fine with a monument-style sign on the back, if that pleases the commission.
I think that's a good call. Thank you.
Sure. It's a better sign.
Yeah.
That's what they're going to do, yeah.
Gaines, This is DPC number 6. If you get that in front of you, let me walk through it with you. So the first sentence will now read, Lot 1 and Lot 2 will be limited to one monument-style sign on each lot. And then what about the height? Are we going to change the height or the square footage of the face?
Pretty big monument.
I don't know that we had a concern with that. That's consistent, the square footage is consistent with some of the other approvals in the area. It was just a question of the style of sign and the LED proposal.
So we'll leave the height and square footage the same.
Please. But as you proposed, Mr. Moore, those word changes to the first sentence are acceptable.
Would you mind having your client come forward and?
Hamp, if you would, please, could we cover the other issue before we do that? Gaines, could we circle back to the screening? I think I fully understand your intent there. You want that to be inviting. And so would it be fair to say, let's treat these separately. The bank, you fully intend, it sounds like, for, let's call it the left facade, left elevation of this property, to have building materials that are very similar to the front facade because you want it to be similar in appearance. And that's the reason for your proposal to not have screening on the front one. Is that correct?
It's a very good summary, yes, thank you.
Okay, very good. And so, and the staff report asked, I believe, also about the rear building. Is that correct, or did I misunderstand? Got it.
Right, getting
Got it.
screened.
Okay. Well, I think I fully understand your intent for the front, and I believe I'm good with that.
Okay. Commissioners, any other questions for Mr. Gaines Penn? So,
Other than the bank, do we know what the other commercial developments will be?
It's more likely than not going to be something in the financial services. I mean, that's the rough plan, but nobody's signed on a lease at this point.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, sir. All right, Mr. Dillard.
thank you, Rick. Yes, sir, if you'd state your name and address, please.
Jason Jones, business address or personal address?
Wherever you
We'll go with
sleep tonight.
201 North Main Street, Morgantown, Kentucky.
Thank you, sir. And you swear to tell the truth.
I do.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Mr. Jones, what?
I'm a banker, Morgantown Bank and Trust.
Okay, and the question on the table is the development plan condition number 6. And are you agreeable to having that reworded so the first sentence would read, lot number 1 and lot number 2 will be limited to one monument-style sign on each lot, period?
We are in agreement with that recommendation.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, any other questions for the applicant before they sit down? All right, thank you, Gaines. Is there, anyone in the audience tonight that has a question or an opposition to this request? Hearing none, we call for a motion, please.
Make a motion to approve the proposed zoning map amendment together with condition upon the general development plan, docket number 2023-17Z County. Based upon the testimony and documents presented in this public hearing, the proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by its compliance with the objectives and action items presented in the staff report. Therefore, the proposed zoning map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further, I request that this motion include a summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at this public hearing.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Shaw. Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Starks,
Yes.
Commissioner Vitale. Yes, ma'am. And Chair Warren.
Yes, ma'am. McKenna, in this a city and county? Did you call everybody? Okay. Good. I just saw all the names. Want to make sure we did it. I'm not questioning you. So the recommendation is approved and goes to Warren County Fiscal Court. Our next item tonight is 2023-18 Z County. Barry Jones, the applicant and property owner, and Cynthia Jones, property owner, have filed an application to rezone approximately 1.7 acres located at 0 and 6427 Old Scottsville Road from Ag and RE Residential State to RM3 Townhouse Multifamily Residential with the General Development Plan. Amy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a pre-application meeting on December the 7th of 2022 for the properties that you mentioned and that are highlighted in yellow. The current zoning is agriculture and RE. Current land use is single-family residential and vacant property. The future land use is rural village and low-density residential. And the proposed density is 8.99 dwelling units per acre. So just to summarize, the applicants are proposing to rezone 1.78 acres from agriculture to RE to RM3 in order to construct a maximum of 16 multifamily units on the properties. The existing home is planned to be converted to a leasing office for the proposed development. And the applicants have supplied exhibits for your review on pages 12 and 13. So looking down, staff recommends approval pending hearing testimony and discussion of the following. The proposal complies with the majority of the review criteria assessed in the review process and generally is compatible with the surrounding area. And staff has noted considerations relating to the Scottsville Road corridor study and the location of parking. We can look over at item 5 on page 4 for that. A requirement that either no parking be allowed in the building setback along Scottsville Road or have parking to the rear of the building, as long as the rear is not Scottsville Road. DPC number 11 requires that no parking shall be allowed in the building setback along Scottsville Road or Old Scottsville Road, but does not prohibit parking in front of the building along Scottsville Road. The proposal partially complies with the recommendation. That is all we have for the staff report. We'll be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, any questions? Thank you, Amy. Is the applicant or the representative here tonight? Would like to make any comments, please?
Good evening, Chris Davenport, 921 College, and I swear to tell the truth.
Chris?
Thank you all. Let me hit our conditions. Obviously, this is a flume compliant request, so this is not a flume application. I know we're here on a flume night, but this is flume compliant. We are requesting, this is a 16-unit RM3 development. It would have single ownership and management. It would have a minimum of 40% open space. That compares to the 20% minimum by ordinance. So we've doubled that in our request. The property, I would note, sits between the fire department and a property that's been recently rezoned general business. So that's kind of where we are wedged in there. The buildings that we're proposing would be limited to 2 stories. They would be comprised of brick, hardy, or stone. Vinyl would be allowed in soffits only. There would be no block foundations. They'd be brick or stone. A couple interesting conditions. Staff had noted through the process that the setbacks along Scottsville Road are generally about 25 feet. That is greater than what the ordinance would require as a minimum, but we went ahead and agreed to that increased setback so that the streetscape had a consistent setback through there. We also did agree not to put any parking in that setback, in the building setback, consistent with that corridor study that was mentioned to you. And then the applicant also agreed to orient the structure closest to Scottsville Road to front Scottsville Road, to have a front facade. So those are those corridor policies we see sometimes. I remember y'all had one of those 2 weeks ago at the Plano Road intersection. We had some discussion about those. That's really what I wanted to highlight. So if you all have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Davenport?
So, Chris, just want to make sure I understand. I think I see in DPC number 2, you're going to have uniform appearance. So you're gonna pick the material, whatever that material might be, and then we're gonna finish all of those uniformly, correct?
That's right. And there is a third structure that's anticipated here, and that's the existing home that would be used as a
Yeah,
leasing office.
I remember that.
Didn't really mention that, but that's the building that's closest to Old Scottsville Road in the concept plan.
Got it, okay. And then I thought I saw it somewhere, you are gonna have single ownership, correct?
Correct.
All right, very good. No other questions for me.
Thank you, Mr. Davenport. Commissioners, any other questions for Mr. Davenport before he sits down? All right, thank you, Chris. Is there anyone in the audience tonight that has a question or an opposition to this request? Okay, hearing none, Commissioners call for a motion.
Make a
please.
motion to approve the proposed zoning map amendment together with and condition upon a general development plan, docket number 2023 18Z County, based upon the testimony and documents presented in this public hearing. The proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by the compliance with objectives and action items presented in the staff report. Therefore, the proposed zoning map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further request this motion include a summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at this public hearing.
Second.
Commissioner Gay?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Graham?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Shaw?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Starks?
Yes.
Commissioner Vitale? Chair Warren?
Yes, ma'am. Motion is approved and goes to Warren County Fiscal Court for final approval. So that's it. Mr. Peterson, any discussion items tonight or new business?
Do have a need for a very brief executive session to discuss pending litigation, and so we would need a motion to go into executive session. We do not expect any decisions after that, so the cameras can go home.
Right. We have a motion to go in executive session.
Make a motion that we go into executive session
So discussing pending litigation.
for the purpose of discussing pending litigation.
We have a second.
Second.
Thank you.
Commissioner Graham?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Shaw? Yes. Commissioner Starks?
Yes.
Commissioner Vitale? Commissioner Cassida?
Yes.
Commissioner Sissel?
Yes.
Commissioner Ritchie? Commissioner Gay?
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Warren?
Yes, ma'am. We're now in executive session.